the deeper a wound is, the more persistent it is. And the more persistent it is, the more you have to amp up this declaration of you being in power. This is what you have to do. Hi guys, and welcome to this 2-part series on how to make healing work. Matter of fact, we're talking about 3 ways in particular that we get wrong about healing that I'm going to one by one talk about and debunk and talk about how to actually conceive healing as, so that it is first and foremost functional and demystified for you. Why do I make such a big deal out of having the correct perception of healing, having the correct understanding of healing? Our perception, our way of thinking about healing influences what we expect, therefore influences what we can have as a result later on. So for as long as we walk around collectively with the wrong understanding of healing is how long we will be stuck in the same patterns over and over and over again, no matter how much effort we put into them. Our culture is heavily invested in healing. Our culture is heavily invested in talking about it, but what it really is and how it actually works, there are certain layers where we don't collectively have the depth of understanding that is actually required for us to actually see results. So if we want to see results in our everyday lives, in our body, in our everyday lives, we have to get it right here. So this is why we're making this series. I think it's going to be 2 parts. Let's see how far we get along with the material. When I say we have a collective flawed understanding of healing, what is it that we actually think of? There are 3 parts to it. I'm just going to put it up there. When it comes to healing, unspokenly, we don't really articulate this, but what we think of as healing is this mysterious, mystical, magical process, 1, that we have no control over, 2, like it's just something we just have to submit to. It's going to do its own thing. It's going to take whatever time it needs. It's going to take whatever it needs, but we have no control over it. That's the second one. And the third one, we have to stop our lives for it to be successful. Okay? And again, those aren't ways in which we openly speak about healing. Like these are just the implicit ways of understanding healing that have just become normalized. And I'm going to talk about each one of those 3 points in this part of the series. You know, when we enter the realms of healing, what realms are we actually entering? We're entering the realms of feeling again. We're entering the realms of emotion. So everything that we once felt that was too much for us, we froze, it got stuck in our bodies. We have the wounds that we have. Healing, at the end of the day, is just returning to ourselves and returning to feeling again, right? Part of why healing is depicted as this mysterious and mystical thing is we're now entering the realms of emotion, right? So now it's like, oh, this is not rational thought anymore. So of course, you know, like we're now in a realm that is not something that we can think our ways through anymore, right? So it's very easy to be like, listen, it's just this mystical process, like, you know, it's just a greater nature at work. And here's why I want to share a story of mine. And that is, the year is probably like 2016, like roughly 10 years ago. And I first got into inner child work. I was not expecting it, but somehow there I was confronting stuff I didn't even know I was dealing with. But so there I was. I read this book. I don't know what it was called. It had a teddy bear on it. Anyway, so I got into inner child work. And oh my God. Oh my God. When I tell you, I had no clue the extent of the things that I had been walking around with, and I wasn't aware of it. And through this work, I just become aware of it, and oh my God, all the waters broke. Is that what you say? No, you don't say that to that. But let's just say the emotional world, it felt like an ocean, broke open and was just there. There was so much to navigate, right? However, a year prior to that, I had started meditation. I had started awareness meditation. So a year before, I had literally started my daily practice of becoming aware of my breath, becoming aware of myself, and I, started gaining some proficiency over seeing myself and knowing what is happening and seeing when a thought comes and seeing when a bodily sensation is there, like seeing it. I had started practicing that. So when I started getting into this inner child work, there were two things that came out of that process that I started to frame what I was doing as a way of framing healing. Through that process, through this intense grief that I went through in there, here's what I found. If you really let it happen, if you really like go all in, it's painful, you go all in, you sit with it, you sit with it, you sit with it, you sit, it's so painful, it's so painful, it's so painful, it's so painful, it's so painful. And then at some point, I realized it was done. It got softer and softer and softer and softer. And then the next thing came, the next item on the list. Right? It was a lot of work to do. The next item on the list came, but what I found in there was there is a process. There is a replicable thing that is happening. It starts, it's really intense, you go all the way, and then it falls away. And then maybe another aspect of it comes again, and it's very intense, and you sit with it, and it's very intense, and it's very intense, and it's very intense, and then it falls away. This is what I kept observing, day in, day out, with different items on the list. And what I found is it's a process, and it has a beginning and it has an end. This is what I found. It has an end. So really what I then started realizing is that, I started seeing how nature, how our bodies have a very natural, how our bodies have their own ways of handling wounds, of healing the wounds. Whenever we get to it, whenever we point to it and we're like, we're gonna go there. Once you do it, it's activated, the pain comes. From there, if you let it be and you give it the space, there's a natural process. Like the body knows what it's doing. The body knows what it's doing. And then at some point it's gone. And this is then what we call as, we just healed that thing. We just healed that aspect of us that was in pain. What I started realizing, and this is what gave me more and more and more confidence to go deeper and go further and go further and go further with it, is that it's actually not mystical. It's actually not magical. It's very predictable. And I've come to equal it. I've come to look at emotional wounds the same way as to like physical wounds. If you have a cut, the body has a process of dealing with it that is always the same. The bleeding stops, it sends some like blood cells that collect the thing up, the bleeding stops. That, you know what I mean? There's a process that keeps repeating. That is always the same. It's always the same. And then sometimes obviously the external world matters, how you take care of it, how much air it gets, is there like, do you let dirt get into it? Do you actually care for it? You know what I mean? So there are external factors as well, same as with emotional wounds. Do you give it the space? Do you protect the space? Do you allow it to be? Do you allow it to do what it does? It's the same thing as with physical wounds. So this is how I started looking at healing. It's a physical, it follows the same structure as healing a physical wound. Not necessarily the physical structure, but it works in the same way. Our emotional wounds, our body knows how to heal our emotional wounds. There's a built-in process that we can rely on that always goes the same. Now, what we perceive as when we say healing is not linear, I'm not saying healing is linear. What we perceive as, it's chaotic is because we have a lot of stories. We have a lot of things that happen. We have a lot of things that were big, a lot of things that were small. Some of it, you get to heal in layers. You do it one time and then 3 times, like 3 years later, you're like, this came up again, It is linear, but what I'm saying is the items themselves, the wounds themselves, they heal according to their own process. And that process, your body knows what to do. And it is something you can rely on. So this is something that I just found out for myself that gave me the confidence to walk further and go down this path with more conviction and security in myself. The second part that I realized in that process, and it's closely linked to the first one, is I started looking at emotions as physical, right? Similar as the example I gave you with the cuts. I started looking at emotions as physical, and here's why it's key, especially if you are similar to how I operate. I was very, very scared of feeling my feelings. I was terrified. I was horrified of feeling my feelings. I was horrified. I started looking at emotions as physical. I started looking at emotions as physical phenomena. And this is something that I can attribute to my awareness meditation practice greatly, because as I said, like the year before, I had really started to learn how to observe myself and to learn how to be aware of the things that are happening and aware of different sensations that I was having without judging them. So I had learned to look without getting involved with them, right? I also have a video on awareness meditation. I have a whole masterclass on awareness meditation for free on my website. I'll just put it down there. This is what I had been training a year prior. So when I entered that process and I was now facing my emotions, what I did literally, because I noticed this was the only way I was going to get through, what I did was I started noticing how every thought that I had and every emotion that I had was attached to a physical sensation. Everything that I thought, everything that I felt was somehow in my body. It was somewhere. So what I did in my own practice is I started focusing on that. I just felt that. I did not worry about what that meant. I did not worry about, especially in our culture, we're so over attached to speaking, over attached to articulating, over attached to identifying and labeling everything. And I'm here to tell you, you don't even need that. You don't even need that. What you cannot go without is your feeling. What you cannot go without is literally your body and how you're feeling. And when you look at your body when you look at your emotions as physical, as I did, you know what it does and why it makes it easier for people who are afraid of their emotions? It just creates this layer of depersonalization. It depersonalizes everything. Right? We gain distance from all the stories and what it meant. But at the end of the day, the wounds are the wounds that we have. The emotional trauma is the trauma that we have. The pain is the pain that we have. This is what is sitting in us. This is what needs to be addressed. This is what needs to be looked at. This is what needs to be healed, right? This is what we have to sit with. This is what we have to feel and be in touch with. And sometimes our thoughts, sometimes our mental capacities, talking about it, journaling about it, sometimes these things are helpful in uncovering things. Sometimes it is helpful to have that stimulation, to activate certain things, but you don't need it the way you need to feel it. So whenever you can feel something, you follow that. And this is what I did. I just focused on emotions as being something physical. So these are the two things that I've come to apply to my understanding, the lens through which I look at healing, and the reason why I say this can make your process so much easier. That was number one. We look at healing as this magical process, and this is mostly due to the fact that healing is in the emotional, in the feeling realm, but at the same time, our bodies are naturally equipped to deal with our emotional wounds the same way our body is equipped with the means to heal physical wounds, cuts, broken legs, the same way the body knows how to heal that, the same way the body knows how to heal mental, emotional stuff, if we know how to make space for it. The second misconception we have of healing that we're not even aware of is that we look at healing as this thing that we have no control over. We look at healing as, I guess it just takes as long as it takes. I guess it takes what it takes. And because I don't know what it is, point number one, it's mysterious, it's mystical. I'm really not running this. It's outside of my control. This is how we have come to look at healing. And now I'm going to tell you something that many people are not ready to tell you. Many people don't want to hear, but since the people on my channel are people who don't have time for this and really need to move on to their next endeavor, have a rich, full life to live, meaningful things to build, communities to unite, families to raise, companies to run, new innovations to bring into the world, right? This is the work that we want to do, but we cannot get there if we don't do this. But therefore, we also don't play around with this work. So here's the thing that people don't tell you. This very factor, us thinking of healing as something that we have no control over, this very thing single-handedly is the most powerful agent in keeping us stuck in a holding position. This is the number one thing that hinders growth. It is the number one thing that keeps us away from the healing that we are seeking. Us thinking of healing as something that is out of our control is what is keeping our healing away from us, day in, day out. You can have someone who is so invested, who has invested multiple 10Ks into their healing journey with different people, who is journaling every day, who's meditating every day for 1,000,000 hours, who has been going to therapy for 6 years. You can have all of that, but if you think of healing as something that is outside of your control, you will not accomplish your goal. And yes, it is that serious and it is that precise. And again, this is something most people will be scared to tell you. And here's why. Here is why this thing is so powerful. Here's why it is so strong in doing what it does with us collectively, keeping us stuck. For that, you have to understand the anatomy of a wound. You have to understand the anatomy of trauma for this, okay? The anatomy of trauma does not like to be touched. I'm quoting Esther Perel. Shout out to the GOAT. Trauma does not like to be touched. Your wound does not like to be touched. It does not like to be challenged. When you tell it, oh, maybe look at this way, maybe do this, maybe do that, it's like the walls grow even larger, right? Trauma does not like to be touched. It wants to be left alone. What trauma does like, or what a wound likes, is, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh no, I'm so sorry. This is something a wound likes a lot. This is something where your wound feels very comfortable, right? But here's the kicker. This coddling does not heal. Coddling does not heal. Coddling keeps you in the same space over and over and over again. And this is the very point where most of us get stuck. Understanding that the anatomy of a wound is that it does not want to be touched, it does not want to be challenged, it wants to be left alone. If anything, it wants to be held, it wants to be cuddled, it wants to be da-da-da. But again, what it does not heal you. It keeps the wound in place, right? And this is not to say that, this sentiment is not helpful. Every healing journey requires a stage of what Caroline Myss, author, energy healer, GOAT, another GOAT. I call her Caroline all hits, no misses. Anyway, Caroline Myss, what she calls a witnessing stage. a witness stage. Every healing process requires or benefits greatly from a witnessing stage, right? Where somebody witnesses your pain, somebody witnesses what you've seen, somebody sees it, somebody acknowledges it, somebody's telling you, I see you, right? I'm sorry, you know? But, but just because that is required in the overall journey does not mean that this is the thing that heals you, because it's not. If you have only that, you're gonna get stuck in one place. And to illustrate that, Caroline Myss also shares this one example from a Native American tribe, where their custom is, if someone has experienced great trauma in their lives, I don't know, lost their spouse, lost their children, or like just, you know, things that happen to them in their lives. If something like this happens, the whole tribe, they all would gather around this person. And this person will just grieve, talk about it, share what happened to them, just share what they're going through, share what it is. And they would do this 3 times. They would let the person let everything out 3 times. After the 3rd time, they turn around and leave. After the 3rd time, they turn around and leave. They knew that in order for that person to heal, they needed to leave that space, because they knew that this was not going to heal that person. They knew that this was not going to be the thing that brought that person back to life, back into spirit, back into their life. They knew that this was not going to be it, but they knew it was a part of it, so they provided it, right? Now, what am I hinting at? What am I hinting at with this? Remember, I started out saying, as the second part, we look at healing as this thing that we have no control over, we have no agency. So what am I hinting at? I'm hinting at the very important essential ingredient that is called agency. Personal power. You need a sense of personal power when you engage in healing, in order for healing to work. If you engage in healing work and you do all the things around it, you do all the things, you go to therapy, you meditate, you journal, you do all the things, and you do it for years and you pour your all into it. If you don't have this ingredient, you will not be done. You will continue to do this forever, because remember, again, the anatomy of the wound is it doesn't want to be challenged. It doesn't want to be touched. It doesn't want to leave. The wound by nature works to reinforce itself. And here's the trick. This is the thing. When you are wounded, it feels good. It feels good to be soothed. It feels good to be acknowledged. It feels good. This is why we do it. This is why we get stuck there. And this is also why we are so, I'm not saying, everybody, every coach, every, worker out there exploits people's, weaknesses. I'm not saying that, but I am saying, because we like this so much, we also fall prey to people who benefit of that. Why do you think the healing industry, I'm just going to call it that, why do you think the healing industry is so big? A lot of this feeds of the fact that due to the anatomy of the wound, that we like this. We like it. We like it. It feels good. But again, it doesn't heal. It does not heal. And this is the thing that most people are too scared to tell you. These are the things that we are too scared to say to each other, in our friends, in our close people faces, because the wound does not like it. It's like, what do you mean? The audacity, right? This is what the wound does. So here's the key point that I want to convey with this. In order for healing to work, most overlooked thing, in order for healing to work, you need agency. You need a sense of personal power. You need a sense of, I am calling the shots. I am running this. This healing process, this thing of moving from I'm wounded and I have all this pain to I've transmuted it, I've healed it, I've let things go, I'm feeling so much lighter, I can actually go and do what I want to do in this world, feel I want to feel. I am in charge of this. I'm in charge of this. This is what is needed. And this has to be stronger than our subconscious addiction to we want this, we want this, we want this, right? So this is the kicker, this is the key. We have to know it, just know it. Knowing it alone is already huge. Know that the anatomy of the wound works the way it works. It is the way it is. When we don't know it, we're over-identified with it. We think we're it. Now we are the wound. Now the wound says, no, hello, do not touch me. And we're literally like, do not challenge me. And another person comes and says, oh, pay me 5K for this. I'm gonna just, Then we'll go, this person gets me. Because we are over-identified with the wound. We are identified with the wound. We think we are the wound, but this is what I'm saying. Personal sense of power is knowing that you are in charge and the wound is the wound. This is the ingredient that we need in order to make all of our efforts that we are engaged in actually work. We have to claim, we have to make the decision, we have to declare that this is what's about to happen. We have to declare that we're going to gain the upper hand in this. We have to face this heads on. And this emotion that I'm giving you now here, this is exactly what is needed. So, agency is the final ingredient that you need in order for your healing efforts to work. What does that mean? It's a decision, it's a decisiveness. And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you just have to be decisive. You just have to decide to heal, then you're gonna heal. There's people that talk like that. We all know them, crazies. That's why your family still runs in that dysfunctional state. Because you don't acknowledge anything. But what I'm saying is not that. You're still gonna have to do the healing work. You're still gonna have whatever you're doing, whatever's working for you, you still have to do that. But I'm saying as an essential part that you cannot walk this process without. This is what I'm saying. This is when I say decisiveness. This is what I say making a decision. And again, knowing the anatomy of the wound. The deeper the wound is, the more persistent it is. You have to know this. The deeper a wound is, the more persistent it is. And the more persistent it is, the more you have to amp up this declaration of you being in power. This is what you have to do. So now we have spoken about how healing is depicted as this mystical, mysterious, magical process, and we now know that it's not. It actually follows a very natural rhythm. Healing of the emotional realm by the body is of the same quality as healing of a physical wound. And we have to understand that, because this is what's going to give us confidence. This is what's going to give us calmness and inner firmness to walk that path. So that was one. The second one was healing as this thing we have no control over and no agency over. And as I've said so many times before, the core ingredient is one, knowing the anatomy of the wound. And this is going to give you the upper hand in this situation, because then you understand why it is so core that you have to, with all your might, have to step into your power and declaring that you have the upper hand and you are running this. You are calling the shots in this process. You will make sure this is getting done, right? This this energy. This is the second point. Now there's a third one. There's a third point. And that we're going to talk about in the second part of the series. And that is the misconception of us thinking that in order to heal, we have to stop our whole lives. We have to put everything on hold. This is the misconception that we're going to talk about next. We're going to do that in the second part of the series. And can I just say, you will be surprised. Walking your purpose, walking your path is actually your number one friend in helping you heal. But anyway, so more on that in part 2. Stay tuned. I hope you could take something.
So if that is grabbing your attention, make sure to grab it, and I'll see you in the next video.
I have no words for it. I have no words for how much impact it has had on my life. It continues to have in my life. I have a masterclass on it on my website for free.